Good evening, sir.
This is episode 90 of the Beef and Bitcoin podcast with your host, Brett CH. Today's topics, it is one day after the halving, so we're definitely going to talk about the halving today. But there's some other stuff going on, and I think the biggest of which was the Paul Tudor Jones news. Legendary macro investor disclosed his Bitcoin position, both for his personal account and for the Tudor BVI fund. So that was just monster news. He also called the top yesterday for like the quick dip, a couple $100. So that was definitely funny to see. And then, there's this other Twitter bot that showed up that's called the Bitcoin Stimulus. And it basically shows you how much your Bitcoin would be worth had you bought $1,200 worth of Bitcoin on April 15th. And I thought that was a good topic because we've seen a lot of people posting screenshots of $1,200 buy orders around when the stimulus checks started coming in. So that just kind of has a lot to do with easy money and, where that money's kind of flowing to in regards to assets. And then, buy first, ask questions later. I saw a big topic going on around, how do you onboard new users? And sometimes it's almost better to just tell them to buy a little bit, and then they're going to jump down the rabbit hole themselves. So I thought that was a fun thing to talk about as we kind of get ready for hopefully what is to be the next bull market. What are you going to do to onboard your friends, family, or anybody who's asking you questions? But yeah, it's been about a week or so, or even longer than that, since we recorded a podcast, man. But how's it been going?
Good. And as usual, a lot happens in the last week. It's like now every week's something new because of what's going on with the coronavirus and just how rapidly the environment around it's changing. Again, I think now we're at the point where in a few weeks people are going to not be wearing masks. So, a few weeks, probably mid-June, it'll be pretty over. And it seems like, I don't know, is it true that they're going to, Los Angeles and San Francisco are locked down for 3 more months? Is that true?
For Los Angeles County, it seems that way. I have not heard anything about San Francisco yet.
Okay, because I saw someone said San Francisco too, but I didn't know. But I saw LA, and I was like, there's no way they could do that. There's no way for 3 months that's going to happen. Like, I think a lot of normies per se are waking up and people are just, but there's no way. 3 months, I would give it as I think Memorial Day, which is like 13 days away now, 12 days away. I think at that point, most of the American populace is just going to get to the point of being annoyed with us and realize that they just completely gave up everything over driven fear and media hype to one side. It's a cash cow for media. Like, legacy media has been dying and coronavirus comes along. And they're milking.
Yeah.
And, they don't even, and you think about it, they don't even have to have any staff, too. They're they're just thinning the herd, and they're just milking it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's definitely a good point. Yeah, dude, so yesterday was the halving, man. Happy halving day. We were not here for the last halving. That would have been the second halving in 2016. We had gotten in, spring 2017 with the rest of the herd who kind of jumped in. So.
Yes,
so little
charge onwards.
Yeah, it's like little did we know the halving had just happened like 9 months prior to us getting in, but I guess that kind of makes sense.
What's Bitcoin? All these altcoins are it's pennies. Oh, fuck yeah!
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's like, I can get 1,000 of these for this much. 100,000.
Exactly.
I can get 100,000, but that's much. Whoa. No.
So, yesterday was it was a fun day to be a part of because we were actually, here and you've been in it for a little while. You have a different appreciation for it. There was a ton of streaming events and conferences going on yesterday. And, the halving happened, just for those of you who don't know, just a quick explainer, happened at block 630,000. So every 210,000 blocks, the amount of new Bitcoins that are released to the miner who is lucky enough to mine the block before the first halving, they got 50 Bitcoins. And then in 2012, that dropped to 25 Bitcoins. And then in 2016, it dropped to 12.5 Bitcoins. And now just yesterday, May 11th, it has dropped to 6.25 Bitcoins for the lucky miner who has the privilege to mine a block. And it was pretty cool that on block 629,999, F2 Pool had tried to pay homage to Satoshi, and they put a message in the op return saying, let me get that. Actually, it was pretty good. They said, New York Times, the 9th of April 2020, with $2.3 trillion injection into the Fed's plan far exceeds 2008 rescue. And that was just, if anybody remembers the Genesis block, it's the very famous The Times, January 3rd, 2009, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. So it was cool to see that reference to Satoshi on the block right before the halving. So definitely cool to see. And I think people got a kick out of it. It was shared around Twitter a little bit. I put it in my story. It was definitely cool. But it's the halving's the halving. It ends up being pretty much like a nothing burger, right? Like a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of
buy
thing.
The rumor, sell the 100% buy the rumor, sell the news. Like if you look at the chart, like look how much we built. I mean, really, we built up for what? Since the March 15th, March 12th bottom, we've built up on halving, and then price dumped 20%. That's the biggest. Yeah. That's the biggest dump we've had by far since obviously the huge dump we had in early March. But no, that's everything else has just been so. I was gonna say is because you were talking about stimulus checks and Bitcoin, mentioned earlier, are people receiving $1,200 each week still, or is this like just? I'm kind of out of tune. Is it still happening like every week? Because I feel like if this is something that happens for like a month, people are gonna be like fucking free $4,800. Why would I not want this every day, every month or whatever? You know what I mean?
From what I understand, it was just that first $1,200 check, and I believe there's other bills being worked on to try to either keep that going because a lot of people, are out of work right now. So,
no, I understand that. I'm just thinking if you did this for X amount of time, people sucking on the teat of free money is very tasty.
Right. Where does that go?
Yeah. I know. Well, and you think $4,800 a month, as people mentioned, it's more than a lot of people make. Like if you think about someone who's making $10 an hour. They're making, $4,000 a month, or not even that. They're making
way less.
Way less. Excuse me, I fucked that up. But what I meant to say was $1,600 a month. It's like if you work 40-hour a week. Obviously, they work more. That's different. But like 40-hour week, it's $1,600 a month. But so yeah, $4,800 a month is pretty juicy. It's it's 3 times as much. It's like why would you?
Yeah. It's hard to get people to go back to work if you make more money staying at home. So I think that's, that just has to do with the whole macro backdrop.
Just the incentive system's so backwards. It really is. Like making actual productive shit nowadays is not incentivized. Speculating, getting lucky, being hopeful, free money, incentivized. And you wonder why no new shit gets made. You wonder why Apple has made AirPods is the biggest invention for the last decade? There you go. That's your answer. Free money. It's all about financialization, everything. Making shit anymore? Nah. Just gotta hit those PE numbers. We don't need to do shit anymore. At some point, reality comes back in, and I think it's finally happening. The coronavirus whole thing was definitely a reality, for a lot of people. Like just, oh shit, like things are gonna happen. Supply chains are breaking. And at some point people are going to realize why all these companies are valued at ridiculous prices and they don't make anything new. They don't. It's like, and you even see it with Apple making, their new iPhone, 5 SE or whatever. It's a new 5 basically. I don't know what it is actually called, but it's going to be like $400. They realize they can't sell the American people $1,200 iPhones. That's like a fucking laptop. It's so expensive. It's insane. It's a fucking phone. It's like, I get it. It's a smart computer, but still.
Yeah, it's just production and new kinds of products really slows down in this kind of environment. And just thinking about all the stimulus, money printing, and everything like that is a big reason why it was so interesting to get Paul Tudor Jones's take on this, and he really talked about this. And I think this was probably the biggest news that has happened in a while, just because, for those that don't know, Paul Tudor Jones is just a legendary macro investor. And in his latest investor letter, he was very diligent in talking about the great monetary inflation. That was kind of the title of the whole letter, and an unprecedented expansion of every form of money, unlike anything the developed world has ever seen. So I mean, he was taking this very, very seriously. And one of his quotes was, "If I'm forced to forecast, my bet will be Bitcoin." And it's amazing to see someone who can kind of look at the broader landscape. And I'm really curious to hear what you think about this. Just how someone who has a macro perspective, like a Raul Paul, a Dan Tapiero, and now a Paul Tudor Jones, those big macro guys can kind of put the broader puzzle together. And do you think this is what Paul is kind of seeing when he talks about monetary inflation and why he's now taken a sizable position in Bitcoin?
Yeah, it fits his narrative, and it's like, again, like what he put 2% in, and I think I talked about this the other day. Like,
it's $100 million of his net worth.
Yeah. Okay. So
$100 million.
Yeah. So you did the math. I didn't know his exact net worth.
Yeah.
So he put $100 million in Bitcoin. So look at it. He looks at it this way. It's like it's 2% of his net worth. If everything stays constant across his net worth, which is obviously not possible, nothing stays constant. But let's just assume that for the hypothetical situation. If he 20x's that bag, that becomes 40% of his of his net worth. So that's insanity. Like, and then you're like, what do you mean? Well, he didn't buy at 10,000 or whatever. The price is just. If he bought, it was probably around 5,000. And I hate these line charts because these line charts just don't do justice. Like, we went way below 5,000, so I don't know why it just stops at 4,800 here. That makes no sense. And then it says we're at 10,000 or 9,000, and the price went down to 8,100. And that line chart's so bad. I'm sorry, I had to point that out. That's why I opened it up. It just doesn't. It's not even right. Like, we went down to like 3,800. Like, it's not even close.
Yeah.
Come on, Bluebird. Sorry. But no,
this is interesting. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just pointing that out. Bloomberg, just the shitty chart.
Yeah. As you can see on the screen right there, I didn't realize that Jones had. Well, I guess we'll call him what PTJ, Paul Tudor Jones. PTJ. Yeah. He took a position in Bitcoin in his personal account in 2017 and kind of rode the FOMO wave with the rest of us. But he obviously sold the top because he's a legend.
I mean, dude, like when you look in hindsight, like there is a lot of cues up there. Like,
sure.
Dude,
and that's how you're in the state of euphoria, because it was not obvious to. I mean, to me, it was you're just ready for it's just going to keep going and going and going, and that's it. It can be blinding at the time, but then
there were
so
certain
obvious.
Things like I'm guilty of not selling certain things, but there's other things I just wanted to sell that I couldn't sell. But I will say, like, I did write my notes in December 23rd. I wrote my notes, like, one night. I was like, things are just, this can't continue. Because the amount of people that were hitting me up that I hadn't talked to just was not real. And it was, like, the amount of people that I don't talk to, that just, like, all of a sudden become your friends. You're just like, fuck. You're like, this isn't, And then, like, I remember my step-cousin's a pretty smart guy. He's a little older than me. I think he's around your age. He's 31 or whatever. We were joking about it because we were... at Christmas, after Christmas, we were together, and for family stuff, and we were joking about it. Like, this was like late December when things were getting really bubbly, dude. You know what I'm talking about. Like,
oh yeah,
altcoins were going, like, things are just tripling in a day, and like we're talking spot tripling, and this is like in like yours in my case. You and I have been in this for a while, so like it's like when these things triple in a day, we're already up 10x. So it's like, what the fuck's going on? It's like you have no explanation for it, and you're just like, this doesn't make sense. And his comment was, things are getting a little bubbly, and that was literally the top. That next week, we got the whole Korean thing, and then it was downhill from there. But yeah, I know it was a little off topic, but it's interesting, like. And you just think about, like, you probably experienced it. You have friends that probably knew you were in crypto. Just, like, the sheer amount of... And you experienced it, obviously, because you probably got... The amount of DMs you probably got in that time frame was probably ungodly. Like, what... Did your life cease to exist on Instagram? Like, did the crypto humor count? Like, you probably had, like, 100 DMs probably just unread.
Oh, yeah. Towards the end, it was hundreds a day.
Dude, it must have been a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, dude, oh my god, just nonstop around the clock.
Yep.
Oh, I couldn't imagine, because, dude, like, dude, just that's the worst. It's just bombardment.
Yeah. One of the other things that I thought was pretty interesting with the PTJ news was he compared Bitcoin to gold, not both as a store of value and that kind of
Hedge.
thesis and use case and hedge, but he also talked about the analog between the two, and he said that Bitcoin reminded him of gold when he first got into the business in 1976, and gold had just been productized as a futures instrument, and then gold ran from like $35 to I don't know.
The chart's retarded.
100. So, and there was like an overlay of that gold chart with Bitcoin, and you're kind of like, holy shit, yeah, there it is. So it reminds him of that kind of that big play, and he enjoyed that bull market. It tripled in price and then corrected 50%. So so similar to what's happened to Bitcoin just throughout its multiple bubbles that we've seen so far. And he did a really good job of using that as an argument for Bitcoin as a hedge and store of value. And I give him a lot of credit because and this is my next question to you, is like him taking a position has now prevented career suicide for other macro investors or financial advisors, anybody now who can say, now they're not going to look like a crazy person by taking a position in Bitcoin, because you can always point and say, well, one of the greatest investors in recorded history has taken a position, and you can use that to your advantage. And I thought that the other thing will be really interesting is, let's say there's a crazy bull market that we go through again, and it's 2022, and you're looing to your financial advisor and say, how did you miss this? Where were you on this? Like, we just had one of the biggest bull runs in history for Bitcoin, and you didn't get me a position in that. Like, what am I paying you for? So do you think just the fact that he was outspoken about this will allow for other institutional investors and other financial advisors who probably idolize him to wake up a little bit and to at least take a closer look at it this time around?
This definitely, in a sense, opens the floodgates to, I think the average financial guy, slowly but surely, I think, again, as Anthony Pompello says, the virus is spreading. It is. People are slowly catching on that it's not going away, and there's more and more instruments being, derivatives being based off Bitcoin, whether you're talking in like the real sense in like the CME futures, and then in the sketchy exchange sense in the terms of the BitMEX. But BitMEX has been around for a while, but there's what, FTX now. Have you seen that? Like, where people bet on movement of it and shit like that, of tokens and stuff like that. Have you seen that?
I've heard about it, but I haven't.
I haven't looked into it much, but it's like the ultimate of peak degenerate derivative gambling, I think, is the best way to put it. Like, betting on direction and momentum. It's absolute, but like, and there's other things like I can't even think of the other exchanges right now, leverage, and non, but I think the point was getting back to like just it's here to stay. Like, there's no way to argue around it. People don't even argue anymore. And obviously PTJ coming in here and basically like, yeah, I traded this in 2017, and now I'm staking X amount percent or 2% of my net worth in there, is a pretty solid statement. And as people are like, people were saying on Twitter or whatever, and I think I sent the tweet to you. People were like, oh, he's not putting 30% of his net worth in. It's like, and then someone commented, someone's like, someone doesn't know risk management or something. And it's like, also, to even accumulate that much Bitcoin, I couldn't imagine trying to accumulate 100 million Bitcoin. Like, like the amount of time that takes. Like, I don't think people don't think about like having to buy that like at the market. People don't think about how much volume that is. Like, you probably need multiple exchanges. I don't know if OTCs, and there's just so many factors. How are you getting $100 million worth of Bitcoin right now? Because you and I know that like it's very, Bitcoin's books are very thinly very thin. Like, it only takes a little bit of money to move the Bitcoin market, one way or another.
Right. And I think, you're going to continue to get that deeper liquidity as the futures markets continue to mature. You have other physically settled futures. Kraken volume is increasing. Binance volume. It's all good stuff, and it just takes time. So it's on one hand, it's like so awesome to see the markets mature, but on the other hand, it's still so early. So like there's so much to look forward to. Do you think we should play that clip, the CNBC clip from Joe and Chamath? Yeah, talking about the Paul Tudor Jones news. I thought this was a good one to play really quick.
We had Paul Tudor Jones on yesterday, and he was talking about, QE infinity, however you want to look at it, and that maybe the time will come when you need to have some type of asset that there's a fixed amount of, and he was referring to Bitcoin. So I think maybe even Paul Tudor Jones.
Say the words. Say the
Bitcoin.
words.
I have to disclose that I own. I mean, compared to you, I own like 3 cents out of $1 or something. You know what I mean? So, but I have to disclose that I own it. But Paul Tudor Jones made the case yesterday, and yesterday was the halvening. The halvening was yesterday. So the stock to flow has now gone up.
Joe, this is again now you're seeing a lot of lines of different thinking converge. So when we started to believe in the long-term value of Bitcoin, it was as a store of value, and it was that schmuck insurance that you kept under the mattress. And there was a small cohort of us that have believed this for like almost the last 10 years now. But when you have people like Paul Tudor Jones, sophisticated market participants, who don't necessarily come to it from that perspective because he was probably first in gold or curve steepeners or whatever, now all of a sudden even he is looking at Bitcoin, and the reason is because we are in this massive deflationary spiral, and you have to figure out how to protect yourself. And so however you think about it, from a classic economic theory or the schmuck insurance where you're somewhat skeptical of the established governing masses, it is important that we have a hedge, non-correlated hedge. And I still struggle to find anything that is as uncorrelated to anything else and to everything else than Bitcoin. And I think that, if we see it have its day, it's a moment where you're going to wish that you had just bought the 1% and just kept it.
With you, we had Paul Tudor Jones.
What do you think, man? I love that Joe disclosed his Bitcoin position that he has.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he has to own Bitcoin at this point. He talks about it. That it's even like dumb. Like if it's pretty obvious when these people own it. Like Joe obviously has been a pretty big BTC participant for quite a while. I feel like at least close to a year now, right?
It seems like he was really starting to get it. I think we were first talking about him in early 2019. That he was starting to get it. He would defend it when Andrew Ross Sorkin would say something, he'd be like, "Well, hold on a second," and he'd own him on it, which I appreciate. And he's had Anthony Papliano on a bunch of times, and they've talked about it. So it's cool to see him, to see somebody get it who you wouldn't think would get it. And to watch him do the back and forth with Chamath here, and you can see here Chamath's like, "Go ahead, say it," say Bitcoin, and it's so cool to finally see this. And a lot of people are talking about this clip. Some of the OGs who've been in Bitcoin for 6-7 years now, who were like, I never would have thought I'd see the day that this was, they were talking about the halving on CNBC and all this stuff.
Well, yeah, I think if you were in Bitcoin in like 2011, 2012, 2010, like, fuck, dude. Like, so early, relative to where we are now. And it was such an it was outcast type of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
got to be just crazy to see.
And I always mention this, but it's like, that's 8 years ago, like 2012, 9 years ago, 2011. That's insane how long it's been.
Yeah, it's been a very long time. Let's jump into the Bitcoin stimulus Twitter bot. Yeah. I thought this was such a good idea. So for those of you who haven't seen it, there's the Twitter handle at Bitcoin Stimulus, and it is tracking what the U.S. government's $1,200 stimulus check would be worth if you used it on April 15th, 2020 to buy Bitcoin. And I thought this was absolutely brilliant because for the days and weeks following this, you've seen that $1,200 go as high as what? $1,800 might have been the highest that it's been so far.
1,800, yeah.
And, I find it such a good idea because on one hand
Speculate.
it's a meme, right? Like it's a meme in itself to drop your stimulus check on Bitcoin. But then on the other hand, this can be something that you and I and other people, new people getting into Bitcoin, can point to and say, well, look what would have happened had you dropped that $1,200 stimulus check on Bitcoin instead of paying off your credit card bill or debt or use for some other really dumb purchase. Like all of a sudden you can, I think it gives the perspective of what even like earning Bitcoin back rewards looks like. Like all of a sudden your rewards program, your miles are worth like triple what they used to be.
Are you going to shill me lolly? No, I'm joking. I'm just fucking with you.
Well, like that,
yeah, I know
it's almost
that's
like the same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's so similar.
I
and
want
I
my
think
credit card rewards.
Yeah, like, imagine all the credit card points you've been earning back over the past couple years were all Bitcoin back, and you'd be like, holy shit, like, I can't believe I turned all that. Some people get thousands of dollars back a year in rewards who they just put everything on their credit card. And imagine, you get a couple $1,000s back, and then it 4 or 5, maybe even 10x's if you hold on to it long enough.
Speaking of BTC income, think about all the people who had like just thousands of referrals for like exchanges, dude, and the amount of money those people were making at certain points, and probably still are some. Like, think about and it's just sheer Bitcoin income. Think about that. Yep. That's insane. Like the amount of money. I mean, like some people probably made 6-7 figures easily, cleared. Those 7 figures with just referral income, which is absolutely insane. Doing nothing.
Oh yeah, I mean that definitely, and I think that's I think we're just going to keep heading in that direction, right? The more, and you and I talk about this all the time, but the more number go up, the higher the price goes, the more demand for this kind of stuff you're going to see. You're going to see more of the earning, the Bitcoin rewards, the credit cards are coming. Like Fold has a card coming where you're going to just earn Bitcoin back for all your purchases. And things as simple and silly as the Bitcoin stimulus bot are going to be the drivers to get people on board. So like you and I, a year from now, if let's say we're back at 20K or whenever that happens, you go and send the latest Bitcoin stimulus tweet, and it's gone from 1,200 to 2,400. People are going to really look at that, in my opinion, and start to think more closely about it. But do you think that? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say encourage speculating. That's all. It would be 1,200 to like 4,000 probably at that point, close to, or 3,600. I mean, so yeah, probably 4,000. But yeah, no, it's an encouragement of speculation. That's where the times we live in now. It's like literally the thesis of Bitcoin. And someone I don't know if I probably haven't mentioned the podcast, but I know I mentioned it to you. It's like all, and I'm guilty of it too. All of us sound money people, the gold Bitcoin crowd, all get pissed off because the Fed and every other central bank just prints money unruly, takes interest rates negatives or zero, and then charges people, banks can still charge people like 19% on credit cards. And we're all like, well, this is fucking insane. Meanwhile, we get pissed, but like this is the road to promised land for gold and Bitcoin people is this. This is the road. This is the road to promised land for us. It is the road that is being paved by the Fed, the BOJ, the SMB, the ECB, the PBOC, the list goes on, the amount of central banks, the BOE, I can go on, that are just printing unruly and have taken rates to just basically made money worthless is what they've done.
Yeah, it's that accelerationist mentality. On one hand, I want to tell the central banks to pump my bags, but on the other hand, you and I have both talked about the Cantillon effect on the podcast so many times, and all the other things where you can look at the wealth gap and the disparity, and it's directly in relation to the manipulation of interest rates, and it's so terrible to see, and it's why you're right. All the sound money guys will say, "Are you guys seriously going to take rates negative? You're destroying everything." But sometimes I'm starting to come around and say, well, maybe you might as well just be an accelerationist and just get it over with. Like, yeah, go ahead, print as much as possible because it just end this nonsense. Because let's say they were being more responsible, and then they're going to try to slow this down a little bit. that takes longer for us to get rich, I guess. And I hate saying it that way because, like, I want to be responsible and, think about all the good things that will happen by switching and moving to a sound money. But on the other hand, it's like, just money printer, go bird, just get it over with. It's such a hard, I definitely struggle with it because I know it's going to cause a lot of issues and pain for a lot of people. But at the end
vindication,
of the day,
dude, the vindication might outweigh it though. That's the thing. You and I sit over here like, ooh, the vindication's going to be very good. We've been talking about this for years. And one day people, I think I mentioned it earlier on one of my, on social media, but it's like basically at what point it's going to be like, just like coronavirus. And just like as you and I talked about in crypto, like where it's one day everyone's going to realize, oh wait, our money isn't worth anything. It's like, right. And it's like the only thing that's going to matter is if you own a business that earns income, if you own land, if you own, precious metals, if you own Bitcoin. Otherwise, you're going to be probably pretty sad. But I think in the meantime, again, as you and I talked about, it takes a while for these things to play out. It doesn't usually happen overnight. And again, you and I are in the good situation where USD is still the strongest fiat currency and is the highest demand. Now, if you had a shitcoin fiat currency, I'd be a little concerned right now. That's all I'd say. Hyperinflation happens. It's happening fast. Like, I'm not saying we're far behind. But if it took let's say it took 8 or 9 years, that's still a fucking long time.
No, it's a good point. It is a long time, and there's many people, even probably listeners of the podcast. One of the guys who I talk to all the time, he's in Venezuela. Like, it sucks for him. I feel bad, and he's a good Bitcoiner. He tries to spread the good word, but there's only so much you can do when the money
it's just literally nothing. It's
when
terrible.
The money stops working. It is what it is. So yeah, I mean, demand for dollars is just skyrocketing. It's exploding, and especially when does that happen? In times of uncertainty, and it couldn't get more uncertain than it is right here, right now. May 2020, it's just the most uncertain time ever, and you can see people's cash balances just starting to increase because that's the whole point of holding cash, because you do not know what's going to happen in the future, and that's why certain people who look at Bitcoin as something that is more certain, at least from a monetary policy standpoint or whatever, you just know it's fixed. You're speculating regardless, right? Either you think it will be money at some point in the future or it won't. But, once you kind of cross over that bridge, that's how I think about it. I'm like, well, that's me saving, right? I'm like, oh, I want to buy $100 worth of Bitcoin this week, and I'm saving that for later because I'm speculating that it's going to be worth more in the future. But people who are just holding cash and can't afford to buy or accumulate other assets or capital, you're kind of shit out of luck. So I'm hoping that Bitcoin almost can become like that, something for average Joes to hold on to. And I know it seems a little, I don't know, why would you encourage very, very retail people to speculate on probably what could be considered the riskiest asset in history? But I don't know, maybe it turns into something really basic that people just start getting over time. I don't know, but I do think about it.
Yeah, it's inevitable at this point, but it's, as I said earlier, it's just it takes time, but when it does happen, it happens pretty quickly. Right. It's going to be one of those things where people in your country, one day wake up, people in Venezuela, slowly begin to realize, wait, my money's not buying as much at the grocery store. You and I know that, and we talk about it all the time. Every time I go to the grocery store now, and I was talking with an older dude today, he's 88, and we were talking about groceries. He's like, I spent $300 at the grocery store the other day, and I think it's just him and his wife, and I know they can't be buying that much food, because they're an older couple. It's so you and I know it. You go to the grocery store and you buy any meaningful amount of food, you're clearing $100. It easily. There's no way around it. You know what I mean? And then you think about those people that work on minimum wage and make $400 a week or something like that. How it's what the fuck? It's the whole system is completely broken right now. It's gotten so backwards that you realize that you have to be smart, otherwise you're fucking stuck in this shithole. It's of a system. It's what it's sad, but that's the reality. It really is. And yeah, sure. If you're lucky, you can get good paid skilled labor, but even then, inflation crushes you eventually.
Yeah, and I think that's what the central banks are really fighting against, it's consumer price inflation.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, even myself included, you know, I'm living in one of the most expensive places on the planet, and I'm saying to myself, okay, well, like, I know I won't be able to afford a house unless the housing market crashes, right? I'm okay with that because it just is what it is. But as soon as all of a sudden, you know, my ribeyes get more expensive, or the prime caps, or for the average person who sees the consumer price inflation at the grocery store for the basic stuff, that's really what everyone's trying to avoid. And you're seeing hopefully not as much consumer price inflation, because that's when people get the pitchforks out and start getting into the streets. But for the people who've already decided that they're never going to be able to accumulate assets like real estate or stocks or something else, you know, those assets are being inflated, but consumer price inflation staying low enough that people aren't rioting. But that's when you talk about all the easy money, all the stimulus checks. What if that keeps going and supply chains aren't working all that great? Now you have more money going after a very limited amount of goods. And I think that's when you start to see consumer price inflation, which that's like the last thing that central banks want, because then you're in big trouble after that. So that's the fight.
Well, and like the funny thing is now, like, and I saw the Bloomberg chart, like, you know, there's like the biggest collapse in CPI ever right now because of, you know, obviously like oil prices and other just wacky shit are going on. But like you and I both know, like, grocery store just completely reverts that, or like real estate prices or anything you look at, or renting, you know, anything like that, you realize prices are much higher. But like oil prices obviously are super cheap right now. That's just because demand completely diminished off the globe for a whole month. So there's just oil floating around. We should be getting paid to take the oil at this point. They should be happy people are driving. It's like, but it's interesting, you know. And again, I think it's one of those things where, because people, at least in the West, mainly haven't experienced this in their lifetime, because the last time it happened was, you know, really prior to, you know, the Great Depression with end of World War One, and having hyperinflation and stuff like that. It's like, you know, and there was inflation in the 70s, but it blows me away that all these old people I know don't talk about this, and they just, it's like, shit, they were buying stuff for fucking like a Coke for 5 cents, you know, or getting a hamburger for what, 20 cents or 15 cents, and then they don't fucking say a word right now. Like, prices have went up like 20x in their life, and they don't say a fucking word. And it's like, but then again, dude, the system, it gets you.
Yeah, it's easy
I hate to say it, but like 20 times, 30 times, like, dude, it's like reality though. Like, what people pay for a hamburger, like in what, 1960 versus now? It's not even. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I always try to put when I see the chart come up, the picture of like the McDonald's menu from the 70s, and you can see, you know, things were 15 cents or 20 cents and stuff like that. And you almost wonder, it's like, you guys really haven't said anything. Like, I'm surprised we don't talk about this all the time, but yeah, it's easy to, because inflation is taught to be a good thing in school, and even economics degrees and finance degrees, business degrees, you're learning inflation is a good thing for whatever reason. And I can't believe I fell for this, probably, I'm sure, as I'm taking this in, as I'm learning it in college or whatever. And then you're like, wait a second, how on earth could it be better for everyone if the cost of goods keeps going up? Like, it's obviously deflationary cost of good would be much, much better. But nobody says anything. But they do when it impacts them enough, right? So that's people who are on fixed incomes, you know, a lot of boomers, and in the generations older than that, or people who are on, you know, benefits programs, will start to speak up if all of a sudden your fixed income cannot pay for the things that you are used to buying. And I think that's the fight that the central banks can't afford to lose. And if they do, that's when mainstream starts to look at other things, like people who are interested in gold, or who would never have been interested in gold. All of a sudden they're like, oh, maybe I want to own some gold. That seems like a good move. Or, oh, maybe this Bitcoin thing. So to me, those are the signs when it's actually starting to happen.
Yeah. This chart says, dude, gold goes above 30 or 1920 here. Everyone becomes a gold trader. It's going to be like the beginning of the Bitcoin bull market. Like, you're going to have like what? Maybe like 8 or 9 6-month green candles in a row. I mean,
Right.
it's going to get ridiculous. It's going to get like, I don't think people understand that. That's what we're looking at right here. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we test it within. I mean, this candle has 48 days left. I'm betting we test it for sure, in this, so before July,
Yeah.
and it might even be sooner. I mean, it wouldn't be impossible for gold to move like $100 in a day at this point. Like, it wouldn't shock me at this price level.
Yeah, it would be absolutely absurd to see, and Peter Schiff will be very, very happy.
Peter Schiff will be pulling in. It's gonna be good. They're gonna make him. He's gonna make his own movie, like Gold Member or whatever, like Austin Powers.
That would be funny. I guess to kind of transition into this last topic, talking about gold making moves, Bitcoin making moves, as we move into this, hopefully into this, bull market coming into the 2021 year. The topic of buy first, ask questions later really came up, and I was thinking about it a lot last week. And the topic kind of goes about, Peter McCormack had put a tweet up saying, like, nobody ever asked me how Bitcoin works. What does it do? Why is it good? All that stuff. They always just want to know, is now a good time to buy? And I give him a lot of credit for being honest about that. And I think it's important that he says it because, the reality is nobody cares about all that stuff. Like, they just want to know, is now a good time to buy, or should I wait and then buy? And it tells me a couple things. One, it fits our narrative of price drives adoption. Nobody cares how it works as long as it works and it can make them rich. But like the argument, when I hear the argument of saying like, oh, well, people aren't going to use it because it's too difficult or they don't know how it works. I think that's bullshit because nobody really cares. Anybody can use anything. You and I don't know how email works or how Skype works, but we use it because it's useful. And I think that's all that it really takes. But I was thinking about into the next kind of as the next wave of new people coming in, and me trying to field questions in the crypto humor DMs and stuff like that, or the orange coin memes DMs. Like, if people are asking me that question of when should I buy, I kind of want to point them to something and be like, you might need to just get yourself 25, 50, $100 worth, and then see what happens. And then if it goes up and you get excited, okay, I have more information to give you that if you want to jump down the rabbit hole, you can. But I feel like trying to get people to learn about it first and then buy, it's like not productive. It's not a good approach. And that's hard.
You have to fucking dig into it, really.
It's hard because on one hand, like, it's dumb to speculate on something that you don't understand at all. But you might end up regretting it if you take too long to convince yourself that, like, it's not a scam, right? Yeah. And everybody, there's like a funny saying, everybody wishes they could go and back and buy Bitcoin the first time they heard about it.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Like, and when I heard that, it was so funny because I'm like, man, like, I could have bought all the Bitcoin that I've bought throughout the past 3 years. I could have just bought all of it on day one at $1,000. And you know what I mean? Like, how much fucking Bitcoin do you think you would have? And it's really funny to hear people talk about that who are more OGs who, saw double-digit prices of Bitcoin. Like, you could have just bought so much.
Oh, dude, what if you saw like fucking pennies, dude? Like, people buying, the shimmer and dollar. And at the time, you're like, oh shit, the people who bought it under $1 and sold it, $100 thought they were geniuses.
Right.
But that's 100x, dude. Why? It's like, think about it. If you bought like $5,000, you just made $500K. You think you're a genius, and then Bitcoin goes to 20K. A couple 5 years later. Right.
I feel like I've heard even like other people who've been around for a long time, and they're like, oh, at what price did you first hear about? And they'll be like, oh, $5 or $10. Like, well, how much did you buy? And it's amazing. They'll be like, I bought like $250 worth, and as like that's like your big investment. Yeah. And because you don't know what you don't know. And at the time, it was just this. It was internet money. I mean, it still is, but it was almost like a joke, an experiment, for fun. And now it's been around for 11 years, and you're like, oh my God, my buddy claims that we talked about it in 2013 because he's a CPA, and it came up like as he was doing public accounting, like, hey, how do we handle this? And I probably just said, oh, that's stupid. And now I'm like, like how stupid am I? Like, I could have taken 45 minutes to go on the Bitcoin Talk forums and see what people were talking about, and I didn't. So it sucks. It really, really sucks.
I heard about it in, like, I think early 2013, and like I was pretty open minded to other things. I'd been down other rabbit holes, particularly 9/11 rabbit hole at that point in my life. I've been pretty early to that one. That one kind of ruined me, but that's besides the point. But like, and I was surprised. Like I think back, I'm like, why did I not like look into that at the time? And I just think it wasn't, of interest, I guess, but it is what it is. I'm here now, and I read a lot more about it than most people do.
Yeah. So if anybody else who's listening to this, definitely reach out to us and let us know, like, do you think that's a good strategy? If your friends are reaching out to you, will you just tell them, just buy a little bit and see what you think? And if you want to learn more, I can help you out. Or do you think it's better to, send them 5 Medium articles and the Bitcoin Standard and whatever Andreas Antonopoulos YouTube video is first, and then see if that convinces them? Because I'm starting to convince myself that it's just easier to convert someone to just tell them to buy, and hopefully it goes up in price and they get excited. And that's like a better way to onboard somebody. Probably more irresponsible, but I feel like I'd rather just
go buy every altcoin. No, joking. That's not financial advice. But yeah, no, the best way to get exposure is actually you have to buy it, because that's the only way you can really have it unless someone gives you some sats. But really, go buy some if you really want exposure. That will get you more interested, because then you are attached to the price. You become hyper aware. You are focused at all times. No.
Yeah.
We joked about that earlier off podcast. That just, it's like, I'm sure I check price of way too many different assets way too much. It's too much ingrained in my brain, but obviously Bitcoin's one of them. And I know you're always checking Bitcoin price, because if I'm not looking at it and something happens, I get a message from you, and it's always like it's like 8,700 or 9,700. It's always what, someone just like that.
Right. Yeah. It can definitely take you over. But yeah, dude, I don't know. This was a good podcast to talk about. I'm glad we got to talk about the halving. We survived our first kind of bull market into a bear market. Got to live to see another halving. Very cool. The Paul Tudor Jones news was awesome. And there's just it's the getting closer to the middle of May 2020. So much is going on. I have so many topics for us to riff on for the next couple of weeks. So it's going to be definitely a lot of fun moving forward. So definitely appreciate everybody who's been tuning in and listening and sharing the podcast, and all the new subscribers on YouTube. Definitely appreciate that. Just make sure to reach out anytime if you have questions, or let us know what you want us to talk about, because it does make life a lot easier for us to bring you the content that you want to see. So we do appreciate that. But yeah, stay safe out there, get ready for summer, and get outside, get some vitamin D,
Get some vitamin D, yeah. Enjoy life. That's also another big thing. Don't pen up inside. Peace.